Mexico did not leave the 2026 World Cup with another painful elimination. They left with something far more dangerous: a young core, a competitive identity, and 4 full years to become even stronger.
El hecho de tener esta comunión que se veía reflejado de la cancha hacia la tribuna, de la tribuna hacia la cancha, es toda de Javier Aguirre.
For decades, Mexican football was obsessed with the famous 5th match. Every cycle began with the same promise. Every manager rebuilt from zero, and every elimination destroyed almost everything that had been created. But this time is different. The World Cup at home was not the end of the project. It was the beginning. Mexico used 2026 to recover belief, introduce youngsters under maximum pressure, and prepare a team capable of reaching 2030 at the peak of its development. Don't believe me? Take a look at this. Gilberto Mora played 4 matches and 215 minutes at the World Cup.
Tan menudito con estos que eran grandotes, pues no se asustó y me gustó eso.
At 17 years and 259 days old, he became the second youngest player ever to start a World Cup knockout match. Only Pelé did it younger. Mexico did not take Mora to learn from the bench. They started him in one of the biggest matches in their recent history. And this is no coincidence. Before the tournament, he had already played 20 matches for Tijuana, accumulated 1,397 minutes, and produced 6 goals and 1 assist. He was not merely dominating youth football, he was already affecting professional matches. And the most frightening part is that he will be only 21 in 2030. But Mora is not alone. Obed Vargas joined Atletico de Madrid at 20, signed until 2030, and played 750 minutes across his first 13 appearances. His value is not mainly measured through goals.
Comentarle a ustedes que también la vieron, el chico jugó muy bien, se adaptó muy bien por ser su primer partido de titular.
Obed recovers possession, carries through pressure, breaks lines and covers huge distances. He appeared in 3 World Cup matches. He was not yet a regular starter, but Mexico had already begun integrating him before he reached his true level. Beside him is Eric Lira, the player who allows everyone else to function. Lira played 37 matches and more than 3,000 minutes for Cruz Azul. At the World Cup, he made 4 appearances, completed 346 minutes, and provided 1 assist. He protects the centre-backs, occupies abandoned spaces, and gives Mora and Obed freedom to advance. He does not need to score to become decisive, and I'm going to prove it. Mexico began the World Cup with 4 consecutive victories and 4 clean sheets. Raúl Tala Rangel played all 5 matches, accumulated 438 minutes, and went 348 minutes without conceding.
Tala Rangel se ha ido consolidando no solamente en las Chivas, sino también en la selección mexicana, con muy buenas actuaciones, con mucha seguridad, genera mucha confianza y también versatilidad.
With Chivas, he had already played all 3,060 available league minutes across 34 matches and kept 11 clean sheets. An absolute madness. But this team is not only being built to defend. Mexico are also developing an attack with ridiculous numbers. Armando Gonzalez scored 12 goals in the Apertura 2025 and another 12 in the Clausura 2026, 24 goals and 2 assists in 35 matches. He does not need many chances. He finishes. At the World Cup, however, he played only 14 minutes. Think about that. Mexico won 4 matches while one of their most productive young forwards was barely entering the team, and La Hormiga will be 27 in 2030. Exactly when a striker can reach his physical, technical, and mental prime.
Un hombre que está llamado a ser una figura estelar del juego. Armando González, La Hormiga González.
Mateo Chavez represents the evolution of the Mexican fullback. He moved to AZ Alkmaar, played 20 matches, scored once, and provided 2 assists. In his only World Cup appearance, he needed 78 minutes to score against Czechia. He could become one of the stars of the next cycle. Rodrigo Huescas did not even play because of an ACL injury. Before it stopped him, he had produced 4 assists in only 10 matches for Copenhagen. Mexico achieved their best results in decades without one of their most promising young fullbacks. But this is not all. Brian Gutierrez has already shown personality, vision, and the ability to break lines. Hugo Camberos and Santiago Sandoval impressed with the under-20s. Ali Avila scored 11 goals during the last football year and registered 5 goal contributions in his final 5 matches. The next generation is already pushing the current one, and this project is becoming bigger than a few talented players. The Federation has started changing the environment around them. The youth player rule returned, forcing Liga MX clubs to give more minutes to young Mexicans. Scouting has expanded inside and outside the country. National team prospects are being followed continuously. and the main reserve category was reduced from under 23 to under 21. The objective is simple: detect players earlier, develop them better, and stop them spending years trapped in reserve football without genuinely competing for a first-team place. Mexico are not depending on luck. They are attempting to build a system, but the most important change is continuity. Rafael Márquez is not arriving from outside to destroy everything Javier Aguirre built.
Creo que es la mejor decisión. Yo he visto en otras selecciones, la que más recuerdo, a ver, ayúdenme tantito, la de Alemania con Klopp.
He worked beside him. He knows the players, he understands the mechanisms, and he receives a team with an established foundation. As Rafa explained, this is not the moment to slow down, it is the moment to accelerate. The potential is enormous, but potential must still become reality. However, Mexico are no longer beginning from ruins. In 2030, Mora will be 21, Obed Vargas 24, Mateo Chavez 26, Armando Gonzalez and Brian Gutierrez 27, Santiago Giménez 29, Eric Lira and Tala Rangel 30, Johan Vázquez 31. That is not a team approaching the end. It is a team arriving at the perfect moment.
Ojalá y Rafa vuelva a encontrar la identidad del futbolista mexicano, lo que es en esencia el futbolista mexicano.
Mexico can reach 2030 with talent, goals, European experience, and players who already earned respect at a World Cup. They have already felt the pressure. They have already defended a country playing at home. They have already won knockout matches. And most importantly, they have time. Mexico are no longer chasing the famous fifth match. They are building a team capable of going much further. And the entire World Cup may regret not paying attention sooner. Mexico do not need to invent talent. They need to recover their memory. In 2005, a group of teenagers travelled to Peru and proved that Mexican football could compete with anyone. Carlos Vela finished as the tournament's top scorer. Giovanni dos Santos became one of its best players. Héctor Moreno, Efraín Juárez, Adrián Aldrete, Patricio Araujo, and César Villaluz formed part of the team that defeated Brazil 3-0 in the final. Don't believe me? Take a look at this. Vela was signed by Arsenal. Giovanni reached Barcelona's first team. Héctor Moreno built a long career in Europe. Juárez played at a World Cup and also moved abroad. Mexico had not only won a youth trophy, they had developed footballers capable of reaching the highest level, and this is no coincidence. 6 years later, Mexico became under-17 world champions again, this time at home. Julio Gómez became the face of that generation after his heroic performance against Germany in the semi-final. Carlos Fierro, Marco Bueno, Jonathan Espericueta, and Antonio Briseño appeared destined to form the next senior national team. But this has to be said, several of them reached Liga MX, but almost none became international stars. Fierro and Bueno produced promising moments without establishing themselves. Espericueta never fulfilled the expectations created around his talent. Injuries pushed Julio Gómez away from the highest level. Briseño built a respectable career, but the generation finished far below what people imagined. Mexico could produce champions. What it could not do was support them after the trophy. Then came another reminder. At London 2012, Mexico won the Olympic gold medal, possibly the greatest achievement in the country's football history at any level. That squad contained young players such as Héctor Herrera, Diego Reyes, Javier Aquino, Marco Fabián, Giovanni dos Santos, and Raúl Jiménez. But they were supported by experienced reinforcements: José de Jesús Corona, Carlos Salcido, Oribe Peralta. That was the formula. Youth given responsibility, veterans providing stability, and a manager willing to trust them together. Mexico defeated Brazil at Wembley and earned the respect of the football world. The raw material had always existed. The real problem was continuity. For years, Liga MX clubs filled their squads with foreign players who were not always clearly better than the Mexicans waiting behind them. Young footballers became trapped in academy teams, reserve football and benches, without receiving enough meaningful minutes. Mexico also stopped competing regularly in the Copa Libertadores, reducing its exposure to intense South American football. Returning to the Copa America was a step forwards. But one tournament alone could not repair a structural problem. Now comes Project 2030. The federation created Modelo 365 to follow youth internationals throughout the entire year rather than only during training camps. Scouting expanded across 22 Mexican states and into the United States. More than 3,100 players were observed in Mexico. More than 2,000 were assessed north of the border. 45 earned professional contracts. 80 reached national team levels. But this is not all. Liga MX restored the youth player rule and increased the requirement to 1,170 minutes per tournament. Youth participation increased by 30%. The under-23 competition became under-21, forcing clubs to accelerate the transition towards first-team football instead of protecting older reserve players. European tours were approved, psychological, nutritional, physical, and technological support was expanded, coach development was modernised, and a project involving 2,000 academies aims to widen the search for talent across the country. These changes will not guarantee success, but they attack the exact problem Mexico failed to solve after 2005 and 2011. And the most important change is continuity. Javier Aguirre did not work only for 2026. Rafael Marquez joined his staff to understand the players, the mechanisms and the pressure before taking control of the next cycle. For once, Mexico are not asking a new manager to destroy everything and begin again. Rafa already knows the foundation.
Hay que ser diferentes, hay que ser ganadores, triunfadores, cabrones. Vamos con todo!
His task is to accelerate it. Mexico have already produced 2 under-17 world champions. They have already produced Olympic champions. They have already seen Vela, Giovanni, Moreno, Herrera, Jimenez and others prove that Mexican players can reach the elite. Talent was never the problem. The problem was what happened next. Project 2030 will only succeed if Mexico finally learn from those generations. Give young players real minutes, surround them with experienced leaders, expose them to stronger competition, and protect the process long enough for talent to become reality. Mexico do not need to discover whether they can produce great footballers. They already know they can. Now they must prove they have learned how not to waste them.
Y la positiva pues te refuerza y dice, bueno, creo que vamos por el buen camino, ¿no?
Mexico's 2030 team should not be imagined as a fixed starting 11. It should be built around Rafael Marquez's principles. A 4-3-3 with the ball, a 4-1-4-1 without it, a 3-man build-up, flexible fullbacks, and a midfield designed to control matches. Rafa does not need 11 prospects. He needs players who can receive under pressure, defend forwards, and understand when to accelerate. A possible team could be Tala Rangel, Rodrigo Guescas, César Montes, Johan Vázquez, Mateo Chávez, Eric Lira, Obed Vargas, Gilberto Mora, Roberto Alvarado, Armando González and Julián Quiñones. But the names are only the beginning. Don't believe me? Take a look at this. Tala Rangel would arrive at 30, an ideal age for a goalkeeper. In 2025-2026, he played all 3,060 league minutes for Chivas and kept 11 clean sheets. At the World Cup, he played 5 matches and began with 4 consecutive clean sheets. His development under Rafa will depend on more than saves. Marquez needs a goalkeeper who can connect with the centre-backs, beat the first press, and allow Mexico to defend higher.
Y creo que eso es lo que me ha dado también una cierta madurez, tanto en mi equipo, que es Chivas, como aquí en la selección. Yo creo que eso es lo que me ha valido el estar trabajando la parte mental.
On the right, Rodrigo Huescas could become one of the biggest additions to the next cycle. Before suffering a serious injury, he produced 4 assists in 10 matches for Copenhagen. He missed the World Cup completely, meaning Mexico achieved its best results in decades without one of its most promising young fullbacks. Huescas can provide width, attack in behind or move inside. By 2030, he will be 26 and could have several European seasons behind him. Mateo Chávez will be the same age. He had already played 20 matches for AZ with 1 goal and 2 assists and scored during his only World Cup appearance. Under Rafa, Huescas and Mateo would not simply defend the wings. When one attacks outside, the other could move inside to help create the 3-man build-up. The central defence could still belong to Johan Vázquez and César Montes. Johan would arrive at 31, with years of Serie A experience. César would be 33, with 3 World Cup cycles and enormous aerial strength. But don't get me wrong, their positions will not be guaranteed. Rafa needs centre-backs who can carry forwards, anticipate far from goal, and defend large spaces. Israel Reyes, Alejandro Gomez, Jesus Orozco Chiquete, Diego Campillo, or another Project 2030 prospect could replace them. The midfield is where Mexico could become truly special. Eric Lira would arrive at 30 as the player protecting the structure. In 2025-2026, he played 37 matches and more than 3,000 minutes for Cruz Azul, before appearing 4 times at the World Cup. Lira could become Rafa's version of Marc Casado or Marc Bernal. With possession, he can drop between the centre-backs and create the back 3. Without it, he becomes the single pivot in the 4-1-4-1. Beside him would be Obed Vargas.
El equipo, queríamos ver un equipo agresivo que nos achicaba en contra de estos equipos y creo que lo vimos.
In 2026, Obed was only 20, but he had already joined Atletico de Madrid and played 750 minutes in his first 13 appearances. He also entered 3 World Cup matches, and the most frightening part is that he will be only 24 in 2030. With regular football in Europe, Obed could arrive as a complete midfielder capable of recovering possession, carrying through pressure, and transforming defence into attack. Then comes Gilberto Mora, the possible face of the generation.
Pues mi mayor sueño es ganar un mundial con la selección mexicana y pues poder ir a Europa a jugar en un club grande.
Mora will be only 21, but he already played at a World Cup at 17. Before the tournament, he produced 6 goals and 1 assist in 20 matches for Tijuana. He then became the second youngest player ever to start a World Cup knockout match, behind only Pelé. Rafa could use him as a number 8, a number 10 or a winger moving inside. His responsibility would be to receive between the lines, attract defenders, and decide when Mexico should pause or attack. By 2030, it is reasonable to imagine him in Europe, but the club will matter less than the minutes. Mexico need Mora playing, not simply belonging to a famous institution. Up front, Armando Gonzalez could become the number 9. He scored 24 goals and provided 2 assists in 35 matches for Chivas, yet played only 14 minutes at the World Cup. He does not need many chances. He finishes. By 2030, La Hormiga will be 27 and potentially in his prime. His movement between the centre-back and full-back suits Rafa's football, while competition with Santiago Jimenez could improve both strikers. From the left, Julian Quiñones could provide experience. He would be 33, but came from a season of 33 goals and 4 assists before producing 4 goals and 1 assist at the World Cup.
Cada día en entrenamiento, en los partidos, para poder estar en esa lista decisiva. Y poder representar a México como...
If he maintains his explosiveness, he could become the attacking leader who supports the youngsters. Roberto Alvarado offers combinations, defensive work and experience on the right, although that position remains open. Brian Gutierrez, Hugo Camberos, Cesar Huerta, or another emerging player could take it. And that is what makes Project 2030 different. Mexico are not building around only 11 names. The next star may currently be 13, 14, or 15 years old. He may be in one of the new academies, living in Texas or California, or developing at a club nobody is discussing yet. Mexico already have a foundation, and another generation pushing from below. But Mexico do not need to destroy one project before beginning another. That is the real meaning of 2026.
Vimos que también México puede competir con las potencias mundiales, ¿no?
Mexico were not building only for a World Cup at home. The real project was always about building the young team that could make the world tremble in 2030. And the most frightening part is that Mexico's next great star may not have appeared yet.